All right, hello everyone, and thank you for attending the webinar Discovering A10 Networks, taking application delivery control and server load balancing to the next level. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them into the questions section on the menu bar, and our speaker will address them as the presentation goes or at the end. All right, let's get started. I am going to hand it over to Jay Gottsman. He is of A10 Networks, and we will get started. Jay, go ahead. Oh, we seem to be having just a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Just hold on one moment. Sorry, everyone. Just hold on one moment. We are attempting to get this started here, having a little bit of technical difficulty, so just sit tight one moment. All right, Jay. Looks like we are all set. If you want to get started, we should be able to hear you now. So sorry about the delay, everyone.
Yeah, that was probably an error on my part. Apologize, everybody, for the delay. Again, this is Jay Gottsman. I'm the Regional Sales Director for A10 Networks here in Illinois. And my counterpart is also on the phone, Lynn Summerlot, who's a Senior System Engineer. Lynn has been with the company for a bit over 5 years, myself a little bit over 2 years. So we appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about A10, what we're doing, why we're here, and the success that we've been seeing. I'd like to kind of walk you through why we are here. It starts a little bit with the background of our organization. That starts with our CEO, Lee Chin. Lee was one of the pioneers of the load balancing industry. He's been involved with several different startup companies as co-founders, and A10 was the first organization that he founded solely. And it really was predicated on the idea of building a system that was quite a bit different than what the market was accustomed to. When he was one of the co-founders of Foundry Networks, he was the VP of engineering, and he developed Foundry's load balancing platform at the time. And this was in the later part of the 90s when really the whole industry grew up. So he had visibility into how everybody was going to market, how they were constructing their hardware, and quite honestly, he built his platform along similar premises to basically how everybody was going to market. Flash forward about 4 or 5 years post the dot-com bubble, and he had the opportunity to take a look at the market kind of in the rearview mirror, and he felt that there was inefficiencies in which the platforms were being designed. There was inaccuracies, there were deficiencies in the performance, and he felt if he could isolate that, there were ways in which he could transform the industry. So he actually he incorporated A10. He left Foundry and incorporated A10 in late 2004. And that platform that he had envisioned from an R&D perspective took him the better part of 3+ years to build. Since that's happened, they began shipping revenue of their what's now called Application Delivery Controller, which load balancing is a function within the Application Delivery Controller. But since he's done that, they started shipping revenue in late 2008. They did about $7 million. But because of the technology, because of the disruptive nature of it, in a relatively short period of time, the company has grown very rapidly. We exited out of 2013 doing about $170 million. So I probably need to update that slide. I think we're about 650 employees right now. We're adding about 200 this year to support the growth that we're seeing. So some other highlights from 2013. Market share, we're number 3 globally. We actually moved into the number 1 slot in Japan towards the, I guess it was about 4 months ago. We're the only challenger in the Magic Quadrant. To give you a little background of how we came to market when we first entered the space, we spent a lot of energy and time with those organizations that required uptime and high performance, and that was the service provider market. We then bled into kind of the Web 2.0, if you will, and had a lot of success there as well. And then as we entered into the enterprise, a couple, 3 years ago, we began to have to play, the games of or spending time with organizations like Gartner and things, so they understood where we were coming from, where we were going. And in a very short period of time, we've risen probably we have risen the most aggressively in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. As I mentioned there, we're the only challenger, and we think we'll probably be in the leadership category, if not this year, certainly by next year. So to give you some idea of where we're playing in the space, today we're primarily going to be discussing around the ADC, but there are a couple other areas and markets that we play in with some of our other platforms. The second line would be our carrier-grade NAT or large-scale NAT for IPv4 NAT extension and IPv migration solutions. A lot of success there in the carrier space. Companies like T-Mobile, Verizon, for example, are a couple that come to mind. Some of the larger carriers, NTT Docomo in Japan, the 3 largest carriers over there. The third one is around our TPS product line, and this is a newer platform for us around DDoS detection and mitigation. This was a joint development effort with Microsoft, who's a large customer of ours. We do Xbox Live with Microsoft and traditional kind of load balancing. Xbox One, we're doing the DDoS mitigation, and Azure rollout, we're doing DDoS mitigation. So we have a very strong relationship with Microsoft. They were reaching some limitations with their DDoS mitigation platform, and having known us and known how we've architected our platform, they felt that if we could develop some software around this platform and leverage the technology that we have, that they could significantly enhance their DDoS mitigation capabilities. So we're seeing about 4x the performance of the leaders in this marketplace, in this space, and our costs are about the third. So very attractive platform. We're real excited about rolling that out. But that's for a different day, where we're spending the majority of our conversation on today is around the ADC. And this gives you just kind of a holistic view of the areas where we kind of play, just from a snapshot perspective. The two bubbles kind of down below is where we're going to be spending our time around SLB, caching, SSL offload, web application firewall, things around SSL. All right, so why do we have success, and what did we have to do to have this success? It really comes down to three disruptive areas. One is the architecture. We'll allude to this a little bit more, but what are we doing that's unique? What took him a while to design, 3.5+ years? Second is disrupting the go-to-market model. How has the market been serviced? What have you been accustomed to? What can we do that's different to create a different end-user experience, hopefully a better end-user experience? And three is around disrupting the design, a lot around virtualization. What are we doing in the virtualization? Virtualization is kind of that nebulous, almost kind of cloud word. It means different things to different people. But what are we doing, and what kind of end-user experience are we creating with that? So let's start with the architecture. Colleen, I'm going to have you let Lynn also speak. I'll kick it off here, but if you want to take him off mute. Around the architecture, we've been doing 64-bit for over 4 years now. This unleashes performance capabilities in our systems. Much of the marketplace is just getting there in the last year or so. They began to do it. Ours is baked, it's seasoned. The platforms are server class, solid state drive, ECC memory, latest generation Intel chipset, so very geared towards performance and accuracy. Things around the operating system. Lynn, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Cool.
So let me kick this over to Lynn. He can talk a little bit more about what's unique about the architecture.
Yeah, and Jay kind of alluded to this already or described it. You always like to steal my thunder anyways. I'll take it a little bit deeper here. So as Jay said, our founder basically, since he was one of the developers of the industry and designed the first server iron products for Foundry, he knows obviously the limitations of what is out there. And what he saw was that as they built out the platforms and added more and more capability, they had to add more CPUs. As they added more CPUs, they would add a dedicated bank of memory to each one. So what that does is not only add to the complexity of the hardware and the cost, but more importantly, it adds to how those banks of memory have to communicate. They use a process called IPC, which is short for inter-processing communication. So it happens as one CPU handles a connection stream from a client coming in. Now that information, for where the information was sent, persistency, load, et cetera, has to be shared across all those different banks of memory so all the CPUs can see that. So there's a lot of wasted resources, a lot of extra time and overhead required for that information to be transferred and shared across those different CPUs and memory banks. And it also adds inaccuracy. Because if you think about it, traffic is still flowing while information is being shared across all the different banks of memory. So as they make a decision, now they need to update the next one, and inaccuracies occur. And if you go to the next slide, Jay. So Lee's vision was to fix this, we needed a shared memory architecture. And that's exactly what he developed, and that's what took the 3 years to do it. So there is no memory duplication. There is no inter-processing communication. So it's very, very efficient. So all the CPUs are writing to the same bank of memory. Less overhead, no lag as far as getting that type of information. So very, very efficient. And the next slide actually, I think, does a really good job of showing side by side how those two different processes work and how efficient the A10 architecture is.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So the second piece of this, when we talk about disrupting the go-to-market, it's around the licensing. So if you're familiar with the space at all, really since inception, to turn up on these solutions, you purchase additional licenses. And with that, there's capital expenditure as well as an operational expenditure. This can obviously, it can get pretty costly, and as most of us who maybe start out day one, we purchase a platform for a specific functionality, and then we find that as our business needs grow or change, we want to add functionality to it. We have to seek additional capital. We then have to manage the support contract that goes along with it. We look at licensing as management of additional systems or platforms, if you will. They may all reside on the same physical hardware, but at the end of the day, when you have to spend capital, going operational expenditures, to us that's additional product. What A10 did is, one is the architecture, as Lynn alluded to earlier, allows us to collapse a lot of performance into a very streamlined system. All of our platforms are 1RU. What we're doing in 1RU, our competitors are having to do in chassis. And the second thing we did is we're doing away with the licensing model. All features are included in the upfront acquisition of the platform. So you can see we streamline the cost substantially. So there's a capital cost that's incurred on the hardware platform, and then there's an operational cost, a support contract that also accompanies that, and that's it. And as we roll out new features, those are also included via software download or software upgrade to the platform, if you will. Provided you have a support contract, you get to take advantage of that. So it does a number of things. Again, we're the new generation kind of coming through, so we've got the luxury of not being beholden to the old ways of doing business. And as a result, we're seeing 30, 80% plus, depending on the number of licenses or features that you may look to acquire from a competitor in terms of price savings. As we alluded to, your capital and operational expenditures become fixed. We've got a much smaller footprint where data center real estate's a premium, less power consumption, the host of things that go along with there, and I won't read everything to you, but there's a lot of benefits to the model. And there were a few other areas that we spent a lot of time early on trying to understand what was important to our customers, what they would like to see in a quote-unquote perfect world, if you will, if there is such a thing. But a couple things is we've lowered, obviously, our hardware costs and throw licensing on top of it. We've got significant reduction in cost, which also ultimately leads to lower support costs. From a scripting perspective, some of you may be aware of things that exist in the industry. iRules is one that might come to mind, but basically it's the ability to program the devices to function certain ways that may not be exactly native to the platform, but through a scripting language you can ask the platform to behave a certain way. Ours are tickle-based. I mentioned iRules. You can actually cut and paste iRules into our platform. We call ours A-Flex. But one of the things we also did is we added another level of support on that we fully support that. Meaning if you ever need to write an A-Flex, you can call our TAC organization or our engineer, your engineer. They'll either help you write it or write it for you and send it to you. For some of our larger customers, we were listening to what they were saying around the ongoing operational costs, and we developed a volume support. And volume support is simply, the market is built upon, support costs are a calculation off of list cost. What volume support does is for our customers who hit different spend clip levels, and whether they hit that year 1 or year 5, doesn't matter, anywhere in between or later, once they have hit a certain spend level, they move into a volume support category, and we have 3 of them. Then it becomes a percentage or net or acquisition. So we significantly reduced the cost of some of our larger customers, or the ongoing operational costs, literally to the tunes of hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars as you project it out over 3 and 5 years. And then the gold release was something that we started with the service provider market, and we found that the enterprise has come to enjoy it as well. It basically is we take a version of code about every 18 months, and on that version of code, we lock it. We're not going to do any new feature updates to it. We'll do bug fixes, security fixes as needed to it, but that code will be locked for a minimum of 4 years. So if you're on that code, you'll never call our TAC organization and they'll tell you, hey, we need to, you need to upgrade your code before we can support you if it's in that window of at least 4 years. Customers like subscribing to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the end of the day, it really gives customers choice. If they want to take advantage of a feature or upgrade the system to do something, they're more than welcome to do it. If they're happy with what they're doing today and they don't want to touch it, it's nice to have the peace of mind to know that they don't have to touch it for at least 4 years. And the third area we were talking about was around virtualization. And in our world, there's 3 kinds of virtualizations. There's a soft appliance, which rides on top of a hypervisor, and we support all the basically major hypervisors out there: VMware, KVMs, and Hyper-V. And absolutely perfectly fine deployment strategy, depending on what your network requirements are. In any kind of shared resource environment, there can be trade-offs in performance and certain features. That's something we usually go through from a discovery perspective when we have conversations with you. If you wish to have that independent license model and have all the performance capabilities, we also have dedicated hardware where we have the virtual soft appliance right on top of. And in that environment, you get to you can have each virtual instance maximizing the performance capabilities of our hardware platform. And the third one, which is system segmentation or partitioning, it's layer 3 virtualization. This is where we have the ability to take our hardware, our box, and make it appear as many by creating layer 2, 3 segments or partitions. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more, but to give you some idea, we can do up to 32 partitions on our entry-level model and over 1,000 on our high-end models. So what are the benefits of this? Well, this is an image of, mind you, very rudimentary, designed by sales, but hopefully it'll get the point across here. This is an image of a recent financial institution that we worked with downtown Chicago. And their incumbent vendor, they were using 2 boxes for the external part of their network and 2 boxes for the internal part of their network. They wanted to add the capacity to do data center failover between their primary and their DR site, so they were looking to add global server load balancing, which is the red box up top. So in essence, that was a 5-box system in the primary, 5-box in their DR because they were using their DR as an active site. It was a 10-system solution for them. What A10 can do with their layer 3 virtualization is we have the capacity to carve up the resources at layer 2 and layer 3, and we can run the GSLB and the external part as well as the internal part on much fewer systems. So in our scenario, we can do 2 systems at each of the sites for 4-system total. So you have a 10-box versus a 4-system box solution. Tremendous TCO just in and of itself. But it actually goes even a step further in that the same customer this year wants to add web application firewall capabilities. So remember, as we talked earlier, we look at any time you have to expend capital and you have ongoing operational costs associated with that capital, we look at those as additional products. So in this case, they wanted to add web application firewall. So you had the 5 original boxes, plus you'd have to have 4 more licenses. And then authentication or single sign-on capability would be 2 more. So in essence, you have 11 systems in your primary that you're responsible for managing, and you have 11 systems at your DR site. So now you're at 22 systems, if you will. Again, what A10 allows us to do is to basically use the same boxes and apply the WAF and the authentication and turn on those features basically on those two boxes. So we're now still staying with 2 systems at each location, so for a total of 4 systems. So you can see very quickly how the TCO model begins to add up. So from our perspective, the architecture, we increase the performance and the accuracy. We serve up a better end user experience. And certainly as there's more devices and things hitting our network, that's ultimately kind of the goal is serving up the business. You know, the BYOD, and as that continues to expand, more and more devices are hitting your network. How do you create a better end user experience? The no licensing gives you a very predictable cost model. You know, we make it so you're able to manage your business, not your licenses. And then virtualization, you know, the optimize the system resources, be able to do more with less. We allow you to enhance, streamline, and simplify, and ultimately it links to a very disruptive TCO model. So from this gives you kind of a quick snapshot of a lot of the platforms that we're talking about here today around our Thunder series. You'll see on the low end there the entry point, 5 gig system. All the platforms now have multiple, at least 2 10 gig ports, and they move quickly up the food stack there. And really you can kind of see what determines, you know, based on unique needs of the network, what determines what is important for our customers, helps with the sizing. Oftentimes in traditional kind of enterprise, candidly SSL, offload, and connections per second seem to be the major variable in determining the sizing. But you can get into situations where performance certainly is a requirement. The number of ports, be it 10 gig or 40 gig or something along those lines with the larger customers. Let's see. Oops. Colleen, at this time, I mean, that's probably the high-level summary. I can't see if there's, I want to be able to open this up but not lose anything. There we go. I don't know if there is any questions or there's a way to open it up to the group to see if there are any questions.
There is a questions box that if anyone does have questions, they can type it into. So if all the attendees did want to do that at this point, let's see. Doesn't look like there's any currently. Let's just wait a minute here, see if anyone does have any questions that they would like to ask.
Yeah, and I'll highlight, I mean, what we typically do, I mean, this is very much just kind of informational, so you know what's out there, why we're seeing the success that we're seeing. There's a different way of kind of skinning the cat, if you will. Candidly, where we find we have the most success is when we actually have the opportunity to talk with you know, clients that and basically do a whiteboard session and overlay their network and what they're trying to accomplish. As I mentioned earlier, the part that's unique about these platforms is they really are becoming multifunctional platforms. Load balancing is a feature set inside of them, where go back 10 years ago and it was really all they did. Now you've got security elements that are tied to these platforms, you know, as well as things around web application firewall, authentication, single sign-on, and the like. And we have a suite of things that we do around the SSL as well, where we complement and work with vendors such as Palo Alto, FireEye, Juniper, and things and companies along those lines to serve up more accurate and mitigate attacks. So it becomes more of a holistic discussion when we can put up on a board a customer's design and things that are important to them.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jay and Lynn. It doesn't look like we have any questions at this point, so appreciate the time that you've taken. And if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to email me, kmichalsen@netrixllc.com. And again, thank you all for attending, and to our presenters, and everyone have a great day. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you all. Take care.